Hi everybody. Hi. My name is Verity. My husband and I, Fungai, we recently moved here from Zimbabwe, and our first daughter, Verity, was born on the 21st of August, and so she's now a whole 9 weeks old. I'm going to talk a bit about some of the things that have really surprised me about both pregnancy, childbirth, and parenting a newborn. For most of my life, I thought I didn't want children. I never expected to have children. And having met Fungai, I realized that a lot of that was that I hadn't met the right partner that I wanted to parent with. And so when Verity decided to make an appearance, so many of my assumptions were overturned about life, I guess, but particularly about pregnancy and childbirth. So I'm going to tell you 6 things that surprised me, and I'll try not to take too much time. The first thing was that everything that we were told in the beginning of my pregnancy was overturned. So when we went for my first ultrasound, they discovered that I had fairly large fibroids in my uterus. And they said, well, you know, this is a huge problem, and you will have to have a C-section. You will probably deliver very early, perhaps as early as 28 weeks, and you know that it could cause all sorts of complications. Once we got here, and as the pregnancy progressed, everything seemed to be okay. And every time we'd get an ultrasound, they'd say, "Oh well, things seem fine." The fibroids shrunk at one point, but they were still saying, you know, you definitely will need to have a C-section. You should travel to the US as early as you possibly can. Well, I think we traveled to the US around, I think I was around 32 weeks. Baby was still inside, and once we got here, the OB-GYN I found here was kind of surprised that I insisted, no, I'm going to be having a C-section. She said, well, I'm not sure about that. And I think it was 2.5 or 3 weeks before Verity made an appearance, she said, you really don't have to have a C-section. The fibroids are not in a place where it's going to be a problem. And I would encourage you to have a vaginal birth. And this, you know, when you've spent almost 9 months thinking, I don't even have to think about the birth or anything like this because I'm going to have an operation. Suddenly I was faced with this choice and had to speak to a few people. But the person who convinced me was my sister, who's all the way over in South Africa. And she had had a C-section for her first child and a vaginal birth for her second. She said, given an option, I would do a vaginal birth in a heartbeat. So I would encourage you to do that. So I did, and so that was kind of the first big surprise. The second very surprising thing to both of us was that this was doable without family nearby. Both of our families are scattered all over the world. Most of my family's in South Africa, we have family in Zimbabwe, in Australia, in the UK, but nobody here. Fortunately, we have a really good network of friends who've taken good care of us, but in Zimbabwe it would be normal for us to have family move into the home with us and help us, especially in those first few days. And I think when we got back from the hospital, we were, you know, as all of you know, it's the law here that you have to take your baby home in a car seat. That in itself was so surprising. But we got home and we've survived it. We've survived these 9 weeks without a single parent anywhere nearby, without a single aunt or uncle or other relative. So again, another surprise. The third thing was that the baby was obedient on our first, and this may sound surprising, but she was obedient before she was even born. Fungai is here on a fellowship at Harvard, and on day 1 of his orientation, I woke up just knowing, you know, today is the day this baby is coming. And I went downstairs and I said to Fungai, I know this is your day 1 of orientation, but I think she's going to come today. And he just spoke to my belly and he said, please just give us this one day. We just want this one day. And she did. We went from 8 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. And at 10:30 that night, my contractions started. I said, she's coming. So that was great. There are a number of other things. A fourth thing was just how nice people are. I know this is obvious, but when you're pregnant, people are so nice. You know, and when you have a newborn, people are super nice. So, you know, I'm running out of time. I have to make this point. The birth experience, again, because I hadn't thought a lot about this, most of my thoughts about childbirth, especially having a vaginal birth, was of fear and pain and, you know, anguish. And my 2 days after, you know, I had given birth and we had gotten back home, and I said to Fungai, you know, the thing that surprised me the most about this whole experience was that throughout my pregnancy, and particularly throughout the 14 hours of labor, I never felt afraid. And I felt so cared for by the staff at Mount Auburn, by the person who answered the phone when I said, you know, I think I'm in labor. Really? Okay, you know, talk to me about it. And every step of the way, there were 3 points during the delivery where we thought, you know, things had gone wrong. You know, the baby's heart dropped, she wasn't progressing quickly enough. And at every time there was a so-called crisis, my doctor would say, look, this is what's going on. These are your options. You know, what do you think about this, or this? It's your decision. And then I would make the decision, and we would go on. And I think just not feeling afraid, not feeling pressured, not feeling out of control was the single most surprising thing about this whole experience. And I'll just add one more thing. I know I'm totally out of time. But the last thing was that parenting is awesome. I think, you know, when you're pregnant, everybody tells you these horror stories like, oh my God, you're going to be sleep deprived, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, you know, enjoy your freedom, all these things. And I think, you know, now in the parenting phase of things, I am just so in awe of parenting. It's the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced, that we've ever experienced. And that's Verity telling me I'm so out of time. But anyway, thank you.